Hello, this is Jared playing Oxygen Not Included. In this episode, I actually had problems with my recording of audio, so I'm actually going to overlay this after the fact. So if you notice I'm sounding a little bit different or more confused as to what I'm actually doing, it's because I'm talking about what I'm doing after I've actually played this. But essentially, what I've been up to is putting together Metal Refinery. Putting in a little bit of automation for that. Next to that, I've got this fridge, and I'm putting in essentially all the cooked food. So all the input food to the electric grill. I'm not bothering to put that in here, but anything that's cooked. Now, this fridge is temporary. I have it in carbon dioxide hooked up to some power. I do plan to put in a deep freezer. Yeah, actually, exactly where I've highlighted it just there. But before I get to that deep freezer, I want to finish up this line going in and out of the metal refinery. You can see it's a little bit warm on this base, so I will want to address that as well. Speed things up just a tiny bit here. So yeah, just waiting for the dupes to create that pipe in and out. I see this brine line. Or this, brine being dumped there. That's going to probably be the cooling. So that's what I'm going to use actually cool my base. The other thing that I could use is the scientists struggling a little bit to work on that geyser. But this is another source of base cooling. So I don't need. I've got natural cooling sources, so it's not going to take a lot of power. I just need to have a pump to send stuff back and forth and some control mechanism to decide when it needs to be done. So this will make it a little bit easier for scientists when they come back to finish analyze that cool slush geyser. So we've got the two geysers. That one there, the slush one, is going to be dormant. So I'm just curious, there's dormant now. I just want to have scientists look at it so I know when it's going to become active, because that's going to be my primary source of water over the short term once the few caches that are around is up. All right, so I'm noticing at this point that 9 bristle blossoms is way too much. I also had a plan here. I've got this switch to control which side the door is open, and I thought to myself, there is a better way of doing this. It actually doesn't involve the switch. So what I'm going to be doing at some point is, instead of switching it like I am now, because every time I open this, I have to remember to close it. So all the dupes can go in there, they can attack, they can pull out meat. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to designate it so only rancher can go in there. Attack, well, actually more dupes, or the dupes can attack, but they can't pick up the eggs. That's the essential bit. I don't want to create an infinite cycle picking up eggs and having them dropped off. Some point I'm going to have enough metal where I'll have all my stables fully automated, but that's a later on thing. Though very much looking forward to further automation. Okay, so this is the other base that I'm setting up, and I just designate this little area where I'm mopping now. That's going to be where some Atmos suits are. I don't have enough metal to make those at the moment, but we're eventually going to be getting down there. I just cleared that little zone out of some water, just a tiny bit of mopping. So we're going to get down there. Now that spot, speaking of Atmos suits, is going to need some power, so you can see me bringing that power down, so that once those Atmos suits are built, power will exist for them. Alright, so that's the piping there for the metal refinery. This is all coming down to that metal refinery, because the moment that is created, I'm going to be able to get the dupes in the other world to start bringing back some lead. And that's probably what I'm going to use a lot of the automation tools over here. I'm not actually going to make copper, or too much copper. Rather, I'm going to use copper to get Atmos suits. I'm going to use Atmos suits to get lead. Once I have lead, I'm going to have auto sweepers over here in these stables, so I don't have to do what I'm doing right now, which is opening, closing doors, and all that type of thing. So I'm having to select. I think this is the point where I've realized that I don't need that automation switch. I can just control who goes in where. So yeah, as I'm selling, I can see that rancher's not allowed in that upper room. In that bottom door there, I'm going to change that out such that no one can go in there except rancher. Rancher's allowed to go in, so if I attack one of these critters, rancher can go in, grab the meat. They have access to eggs, but because they don't have access to the drop off at the top, it's not going to be an issue. So I'm just going to remove that automation. That's how I should have just designed it from the start, but just did not think that at the time. Alright, so this is my metal refinery area. Back over here, making way towards atmosuits. I can see some dupes climbing up that pole. Very slow task. It's also a low oxygen area, but I plan to put the atmosuits up here, where I just indicated, instead of down there. And I actually am opening up that area because in my mind, the atmosuits are still going down there. I'm clearly a bit confused about that. I'll address that in the next episode. I see a piece of meat in there, so that's why I've dug into that zone. So yeah, this is a piece of construction I've been waiting to have complete for a little bit now. Base is starting to get warm, so I'm going to have to think about that. I'm looking at some of these polluted water caches, and I thought, should I have used those for liquid cooling? Because they're a little bit closer, and that would have made this pipe a little more easier to build just because I would need less of the pipe. So speaking of the actual base cooling, this is probably what I'm going to use for the initial cooling, this brine. If not, it'll be the slush on the other side. But I'm prioritizing creating that wall because I don't want that to spill over to the other side towards my base. So these guys here, I'm running out of tasks for them until the Atmos suits arrive. Once the Atmos suit arrives, there's going to be a lot for these guys to do. You can see one the fish here would like to get free, so I'm going to open that up. At this point, I'm looking at trying to trap some of these slug pugs in rooms just that I can take advantage of there. Oh, I'm noticing that I've got one up here I could potentially trap if this door can get created quick enough. That's going to allow me to produce some power at nighttime. Just save a little bit of effort on the manual generator if I end up doing that. So one of these pipes is insulated, and that takes twice the amount of material. That could explain why the construction project's taking a little bit longer than I'd like. And here I'm confused because I'm clearly gone back to the idea that I'm thinking the ammo suits are down there, which is not where I have it in my mind at the moment now that I'm reviewing this. But I do want to have a ladder and a fire pole in there because that's once they put on the exosuit, that's the direction they're going to go. You can see I can't create the exosuit forge. There's no liquid going into this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, why not just put the order in now, even though the water's not in there? That way, the moment it is, it automatically will instruct the dupes to start producing. I just have to wait for these pipes to be created to allow that to happen. So I've got some insulation complete up here. I've got 2 dupes in this area, and it's around this time I start thinking to myself, until I've got those atmosuits, I'm probably going to get one of them to go back to the home world, because there's more work that needs to be done there than there is here. Even when I do get some atmosuits, I'm probably only going to have 2, maybe 3 at the most dupes on this outpost. Most of the work that I'm going to be working on is here. Now, I'm just waiting for those pipes. I have it on my mind because the next thing I'm going to be wanting is the deep freezer, because I've got a lot of meat that I can produce. Way too much bristle blossoms at the moment. This is the point I'm opening this door so that rancher can go in there and attack. Because while I'm doing all this, I want to make some progress on the carnivore achievement. I don't want to produce all the meats because some of that meat might go bad, but it'll be a very good moment. I don't know if it'll be next episode, but if not, I'll probably be the one other. I'll have a deep freezer created, and I can create all the meat I want, barbecue meat, and store it in the deep freezer. At that point, it's just a matter of time before the carnivore achievement is obtained, because I continually get eggs out of these 3 stables for the hatches. So just indicating here that I've got the fridge. So that's going to make the food last a little bit longer, and just until I get enough time to actually get around to creating this deep freezer. So yeah, I've got 5 of these. I almost think that might even be too much, but I'm going to go with it for the time being. It's better to have too much food than not enough, in my mind. And I keep staring at these pipes, and not a lot of progress seems to be happening, but they're getting there slowly. So I notice I've got one error, which I'll fix later. The output pipe is actually in the liquid. I'm going to have to bring that up later on. Okay, so one side, the output side, that's the insulated one, because that's going to be hotter. I don't want to heat up the base along the way. All right, I'm just looking at that's 21 cycles until this that geyser runs. Now I've got plenty of water, so I'm thinking that's just fine. It's just nice to know when it's going to be active. That's why I had scientists analyze that. Just having a look at some of the tasks I can get these guys to do. I can see that I want to go into this area, so we're going to seal off the Great Hall so it stays a Great Hall. And we're going to put some pug slugs, or pug slug eggs. And if I do this over the long haul, this is actually going to move all the pug slugs over slowly. And I'd rather have them in the home world because I can use them to produce metal. I want them to stay wild. And if I put them in a specially designed area, that'll actually work quite well. Probably not going to do that anytime soon, but it's going to take a while for all those eggs and pug slugs eventually to arrive. Anyway, so I'll start the process now. Just looking, I see artists can get masterworks. Not ready to do any decorating. There's higher priority things such as the deep freezer, working on the carnivore achievement, but it is something that I'm going to be doing at some point down the line. Alright, so I'm sending a dupe back because there's not a lot of high priority tasks. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to have, including finishing up this piping. So I'm thinking, why not bring one dupe here? So now I've got 9 dupes here. I just have one dupe. I'm probably going to keep that dupe over on this other asteroid, if I can just keep them busy with some lower priority tasks until we can get some metal created. Okay, just tacking a few of these guys. Now I've got this set up so that I'll expect if it's during the day, rancher's going to go in there. So for the while, I was using the micro musher. I think I no longer need the micro musher, which is really nice. That doesn't produce good quality food, and it's very manual work associated with that. Just putting some mush fry in there that I see sitting on the ground. You might see some or hear some airplanes. I am traveling at the moment. I also don't have my typical setup, probably why I had the mic issue at the beginning of May. I'm going to be back to my office, which I very much look forward to, so make things a little bit easier. Anyway, I'm speeding things up, just waiting for that pipe to be created, because that's really what I'm waiting for, to get that metal refinery running. so I can advance with some automation and make things much easier for myself and my dupes. Here I've got put in a space for bleachstone, because I'm gonna be digging into that. See, that slug egg hasn't actually arrived, so upping the priority this to make sure that actually gets there pretty soon. Because if it hatches, well, I'm gonna have to wait for that pug slug to eventually lay another egg. I do have to make sure these guys don't become crammed in the rooms that they're in. I'm trying to lock these ones in. I'm thinking about it. I think they produce 400 each, which is, if I have 3, that's actually too much. That might overload circuits. I'm noticing now I've caught a second one. So that's the last one that I want to catch in this particular asteroid. Unless I upgrade to heavy watt wires, which I don't think I'm going to do on this asteroid. Just opening up my great hall. Taking out a spot. I don't want to see water spill over and go towards the oil biome in the future. A little piece of food. 44,000 calories. It's way too much, especially given the fact I only have a fridge. Okay, so I feel we're getting closer and closer to having this pipe created. And I'm looking at these dupes, and I'm going to grab one. This is going to be the 11th dupe, the last one. So they're interested in researching rocketry and building. I'm going to call them Rocket for the time being. I'm going to probably rename them to Astronaut, I'm thinking. Not good with agriculture. That's completely fine in my mind. Be curious what people's thoughts, if they've noticed any difference versus me talking about the playthrough after the fact versus during. Sometimes I find it a little confusing because I have to remember exactly what I was trying to say or trying to do at the time. Okay, I know what I'm doing here. This is where I'm opening up the deep freezer. This is definitely a high priority task. I would say the 2 most important things in this game is oxygen and food. And if you can store food in a deep freezer that'll last forever, that is really, really nice. It's also going to be good because I'm going for the carnivore achievement, and I can produce all the meat at once if I want, and know that the barbecue meat will be stored in here. So I'm just measuring out where I want the end of my great hall to be. I'm going to put the end right there. On the right side of that is going to be the kitchen. Below the kitchen, that's where the deep freezer is going to be. Just wondering if I can use the bisylite for that part of the construction. I may or may not, but that's not a huge thing since I can build insulated tiles. Okay, at this point I'm like, I want these pipes built, so I'm upping the priority. So I've been waiting a while for those that pipe to be built, but it's nearly complete. I'm quite excited at this point. At the beginning of the next episode, I believe I'll start to have some metal, and I'll actually be able to decide how I want to use that for automation and ammo suits and that sort of thing. So there's the metal refinery there. Still doesn't have water. It will have liquid coolant soon. It's been a while since I've done any research. It's more about building things and using the technology that scientist has unlocked. So just getting rid of some of these plants in preparation for that deep freezer. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to complete it in the next episode. I'm certainly going to work on it. At this point, I'm upping the priority. Actually, I think I've forgotten to undo this. Maybe try to make a note to myself. I temporarily like to do this every now and then so that these get filled up so that we don't have critters starve. I don't need to continually feed them. That's a waste of resources, but I want to feed them enough so that they don't perish early because they're producing lots of eggs, which ultimately produces meat. See miner in there. Miner's the only dupe that has a priority on digging. And oh yeah, this zone, this is where I plan to put my pip stable. I'm realizing I got some bleach stone. It reminds me that I've got bleach stone down here to cut. And I've got that new storage bin. And my dupes have not experienced what bleach stone is yet, so I have to wait for this dupe to actually break that. And then I can specify it finally here. So I'm going to do bleach stone. High priority. Because if you don't store that in liquid, it'll become chlorine over time. And I'm thinking myself, I want to do the same thing over here, especially if I want to get that pip stable created that has some bleach stone. Just out searching for a good spot for that. Thinking about storing it over here in the industrial area. But that might get in the way of some of the things I plan in the future, so what I end up doing is putting it here instead. I'm going to store some liquid there, so we're going to dump some water on it. But I want to create some tiles around that before I get to that point. So we're just filling around here. I don't need both those tiles to be filled with water, just the bottom one. So don't need actually a lot of water for that, which is nice. So I'm starting to fill up some polluted water. I can see we'll have to do that, do something about that. And there we have it. Finally, some liquid cooling going into the metal refinery. I've been waiting a bit for that, but there it is. I'm not going to be using that as the cooling line for very, very long, but I'm going to be producing a good, maybe, I don't know, roughly 30, 40 pieces metal. I believe I've never actually counted before, but that's my plan, is just to produce some until I have time to get a better cooling source mechanism. But there's higher priorities at the moment. So, and this dupe, this is not a high priority task at all, but without Atmos suits, there's not a lot for them to do. So I'm just going to give them some work so they don't stay idle. And once I have that metal created, I'll send it over, and then they can actually make those Atmos suit checkpoint and all that. Just inspecting that wiring. I'm probably going to split that upper wiring into two at some point soonish. So I'll have a second transformer for that. But for the moment, I'm not going to do that. Looking at cutting through some slime, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do that until this little section here is built to store both slime and bleach stone. So I've gone and canceled that. And this is the end of cycle 65, so I'm wrapping it up at this point. Just putting in this pipe. Don't want to actually connect that. Leave that for the next episode, possibly. And I see someone actually producing some metal in the metal refinery. That is really good news. And this is the point where I just realized that this was the wrong location for the output, so just changing that to be up here. Alright, well, thank you for watching. Hopefully I will see you in a future episode where I'll continue on. Till then.